Okay, we've got a pretty basic scene. Guy walking on a wet street, rain falling, splashes on the ground, reflections in the pavement. He's getting soaking wet there. Car goes by, and let's take a look and kind of see how you could possibly build something along a similar line. Let's go to our preview camera here and take an overall look at the shot. Pretty simple scene in many ways. Got a little fog turned on there. You might or might not want to use the fog, so you can certainly turn it off. Makes it a little snappier, so we'll go back to our camera here. You can see it's a little snappier looking. If that's what you like, then turn the fog off. It kind of does some neat things in the background. I kind of liked it there, but all depends on the effect. Also got a little HDR going on here. Little subtle glows there. Can adjust those. And pretty much nothing going on in the way of image-based. You can crank it up, but you see what happens when you do that. You're killing some of the reflections here. At least I can't figure out how to eliminate that, so I pretty much turn that off. Any other settings here, bounce strength, you might be able to get a little more out of it there, and that looks pretty good. Doesn't blow the effect too much, so might adjust that a little bit if you choose, but everything's pretty standard so far. Let's take a look at what we're using here. We've got some water, some of the old legacy water. I'll show you right there. You can see reflections happening there, and by turning the water on and off, it'll be very apparent. And we're getting more reflections in the pavement there, so that's a good thing. I think made a few adjustments in the water. Let's see here. Let's go over and look at the water. Obviously, it's very, very close to the ground. Let's turn it back on there. Okay, it's very close to the ground. If you bring it up, you get more definitive reflection, but I wanted them pretty subtle, so it's almost gone. One more click and the water would be below the pavement there. So I sized the water way down, just big enough to fit the scene. The wave is just pretty much appropriate. I think you can possibly see it real close. Some of you can see here, it's very subtle movement, but there's a little movement there. Adjusted the clarity, seemed to be better at the lowest setting. And here, once again, you can adjust this to get more or less reflection, depending on what you like. And everything else is pretty much not going to change anything as far as I can tell. So that was the basic water. I used one of the legacy water objects, and as I remember, it was the Pond Ripple, I believe, was the one I used. Pond Ripple, and probably adjusted the color maybe all the way black. And those are the settings there for the water. The other objects, the particle effects, take a look at that. The rain is an old legacy effect, and you've got a couple of different rain effects you can use from the old legacy particles. I didn't use this one. This one's available. You might like it better. I did use the splashes right here. I used those. Those were fine. I had to adjust them, and I'll show you some adjustments. There is also another rain effect in environment, and I believe that is the one I ended up liking better. So I used that rain effect. But as far as the splashes were concerned, here they are. You can see the splashes here. Just so you know, the rain was right above here. Now you'll notice the rain is going to be falling inside the shop, but it wasn't apparent in the camera lens that that was what was happening, so I didn't worry about adjusting it. Obviously, you could scale this down to where it only rained on the front street and the back street and the side street. You could create 3 different rain effects to particles to use in those areas if that's where you wanted to rain. But I didn't see a problem particularly, so I didn't worry about it. The splash is here and real close to the ground. I did do a pretty good bit of adjusting to the splash. I adjusted the softness strength, I adjusted the scale, the emit rate. You could have more or less, obviously. The positioning was adjusted. Also, I adjusted the size. At each of these nodes, you've got 4 iterations of splashes, particles, and I adjusted the size here of those splashes to conform kind of to the scale I was after, but you can obviously adjust that. Softness strength was adjusted so it would blend a little better into the shot. Didn't stand out too big once I adjusted the don't think I adjusted the coloring too much, but I certainly adjusted the opacity and the softness of the splashes, and we could probably have a few more splashes there for sure. Okay, let's take a look now at one other thing. As I said, you might not want to use the fog effect, and we can turn off the fog. Makes it a little snappier looking in some ways, a little contrastier. So you might prefer that. I just like the haze of the that the fog added. One other simple thing, the car lights. This little cube here, we've got a couple of spotlights attached to it, and as the animation goes along, I did a simple keyframe animation here as it rotates and creates the light flashing across the screen, mimicking a car light maybe. Don't know if it works, but it worked okay, I thought. Let's take a look at our lighting right here. Don't have too many lights going on here. Our main light is the key light here, and that's pretty much giving this background lighting. The actual background, the building, which is simply a plane back here, nothing, didn't want to build anything. You could, but I wanted to keep this scene as simple as possible. That's lighting the background. This is the actor's backlight, and that's what that's doing there. Well, actually, that's an additional light which we didn't have in the shot. Let me show you that one. That is lighting up. Let's go down here, look at our camera. And, yeah, it's lighting. I didn't have that one on, but you might like that. Might add something to it. I don't know. I chose not to use that one. Added a few more little lights to light up the little store, and those typically were point lights. There's a little bit of a very subtle light there, and light there in that little hallway, and then this little blue light, which is very obvious here, but in the camera shot it's very subtle. Just gives us a little bit of a hit there. Opens that up a little bit. So that's the basic lighting for the scene. And let's turn on. I just created a work light. I don't like this particular light. It didn't do really good for me, so I just turn on a work light here. You can see a little more about the scene. The main thing, obviously, is the wet pavement. Particles are fine. They help. The water is fine. That helps. But to get these ripples in the pavement, and this pavement is simply a image map, simply a JPEG. You can find it anywhere. I think I copied it from a prop. It was just a street. So what I did, let's select that floor, I'm calling it. Look at our modify, and there is the image map, simply a JPEG. And I put a bump, which is simply a tiled image, simply a JPEG. It's not a normal map. But that bump is what's crucial in giving us the little light hits, which are being caused by right-clicking here, adjusting, and playing with the slider here. By adjusting that, we cause the specular reflections to happen on the pavement. Also, it's a good idea to adjust the metallic maybe. I didn't have to do that. Let's see, here we go. Put this down here. And that will darken the pavement, tends to darken it. And once again, getting it to what you like. But that will give you the reflection that you want. Either a lot of coverage or very little hits. So that's where you really get a nice specular reflection. You got to have a bump map, and I happen to just use this tileable image here, and don't need to adjust that really. What we adjust here is the strength. If you got no strength applied, then you're not going to get anything. But as you apply that, you're going to get the wet surface reflection, and this will aid in reflections as well. So then, of course, the key light is crucial to backlight that. So let's go back here, and you see this light helps sell that effect as well. Let's kill everything here, turn off our work light, and that gives us a nice hit. It all depends on where your camera is located. That's going to give you a nice reflection there and cause that surface to look very wet. And another object that you might have noticed are the little water puddles, and they are simply pings that any paint program can create a ping file, and you'll see what they are here. A lot of transparency to them, and basically all I do, I go into my paint program, start a blank file, and then I just draw a puddle. This can be used as a puddle of blood or whatever you might need. I might put a little smoothing on there to smooth it out. I don't make it perfect. Okay. I create another layer. So, and then it doesn't really make too much difference on the color, because you can adjust and add color if you need it in iClone. But there's our basic shape. You could maybe play with some embossing effects if you want to. But basically, I just turn off that background layer. And now I save that as a ping, which allows it to save the what we call the alpha channel. So it's transparent. And then I can bring that file into iClone. I'm going to hold down the control key. Going to drag this in. And this was, here's just going to be a puddle of blood, let's say. And obviously now we'll take the color away from that file. Right click there, take the color away, we'll make it a PBR, which allows us to play with any potential reflections. And then we'll adjust the opacity way down, take any shading, and probably even turn off any shading capability at all. Make it as shiny as possible. There we go. And then once again put it extremely close to the ground, and we'll go ahead and turn on reflection. Now reflections aren't really very good at this point in iClone. Hopefully in a newer version we may see much better reflection capability, but if you crank it way down you'll get just enough reflection, and then you want to make sure you get it as close to the surface as possible. And let's just crank it down there, right about there. Okay, yeah, it's gone now. Okay, right there. And then just position it wherever you want to. Now you could do a subtle animation. You could add a keyframe here and stretch it out, and so it's actually growing. Now of course we want to make sure our pivot is in the center. There we go, by hitting the center there. Now we can scroll it down and stretch it out, and it could be subtly getting larger if you wanted to, so you could do that. So yeah, the little puddles I added around in various places and gave them reflection, so that helped sell the wet pavement as well. Now in case you're wondering, the set is extremely simple, and I'll turn on my little work light and you can see what it is. It's really just a image map that I cut up in Photoshop, put a background image here, and in the front window I think I made a pane of glass in the front. I'll just show you real quickly. The only real three-dimensional thing was I just took a cube and mapped some bricks on that to cover up the corners, since corners are very sharp and don't have any dimension to them at all. So and then I made a little sign here. Once again, this is a ping. The little store sign is simply a ping with a little bit of glow on it. But we'll take a look. I love to find textures like this at a site I go to a lot called textures.com, and they got tons of stuff and lots of image maps. And you can see you've got stores, fronts, and things, which are really great. So basically just took one of these types of images, I loaded it into Photoshop. Here it is. Here's the image right here. Typically I'll duplicate to a second layer, turn that bottom layer off, and then I just went in and cut out the windows by making a selection here and just delete that. Did that, painted over any text, added my own text, and so this is what I ended up with here. This particular image, let's see, yeah, there we are. Yeah, there's a little store sign there, just a ping image. But I added a little graphic art there, cut these windows out, and saved this once again as a ping, and then brought that into iClone right here. Also, I added another image and just deleted the image. Let's see here. What you can do simply to create a pane of glass. Let's just drag tiger skin in there, and we'll see what we can do with that. We'll just take that flat JPEG image, and what I'm going to do is go into modify and just simply delete the diffuse map. So that gives me a nice blank image that now I can play with. Probably make it black or extremely black or totally black, and make it opaque. For grins, go ahead and make it PBR. Can't hurt. Can adjust those some more. Obviously, I added some reflection. As I say, you've got to be very judicious with your amount of reflection, because it doesn't look very good in iClone at this point in time. As I say, hopefully, I think we're going to get some better reflections at some point. So that's a pane of glass, basically, and so I stuck that between the image map and the map of the interior of the store, which was simply, once again, another image that I got on the website, and put that behind. Added some illumination to it, and added my window back. So that's all the set is. Extremely simple, just enough to sell it. And then I put this image over here, just an image map, to reflect in the glass, and it's extremely subtle. It's not doing a lot, but there we go. And I added a couple of 3D boxes to add a wall right there, and just a little poster there, and added another image map there. All just flat JPEGs, just drug in to sell the scene a little more, but keep it simple. And then just a few little actual props around. Okay, let's talk about our actor and his wet clothes. Let's just drag in, I think the character I used was probably this guy here. Just making sure that we have PBR. And so, okay, to make his clothing wet, and the shoes, let's just go up to the scene. Christian is the character I use. Let's do the boots. We'll go over to modify and make sure, okay, these are traditional, so we make them PBR. Okay, and now, once again, all we really need to do, right click, adjust color. You see we got a wet surface there. If you want to make the surface darker, you can either do it here, or obviously adjust the color swatch here and make it dark, like so. Or you could, once again, grab this map, probably take a little of the saturation out, and you can adjust the brightness here to make it darker too. So either one of those is going to, either one of those options will get it darker. The roughness PBR map will then take care of that. Pants, pretty much the same way. And jeans here, modify, and we make sure they are PBR. Okay, and once again, to get the specular going, so might give it a little bit here, might adjust the darkness here. there. Might take out a little bit of the color just for grins. So that's going to give you a wet object, and it works, of course, for skin, clothes, whatever. So there you go. Hope that helps. Pretty basic scene, but by using just some relatively simple techniques, I think you can achieve the result you might be looking for. Thanks for watching.